Mr. Chairman. And first, Admiral Harris, thank you for your willingness to serve. I enjoyed our meeting together, and I've enjoyed our meetings over the years, including briefings you've given us in your role as PACOM commander. And you're going at a critical time, obviously, not just for Korea, but for the region and the world. And you're going to be part of a new team. You're going to be part of the Pompeo team now. And as you say, you have a lot of background and experience on the military side, which will be very helpful. I do think that we have a real opportunity here, and there's an opening. We need to be clear-eyed, as you and I have discussed, about what the challenges are. We certainly, based on experience, cannot be trusting of what North Korea says in terms of their commitments, because they've made commitments in the past that they haven't honored. But it is an opportunity, and I do believe that we ought to give the President and the administration the space to be able to negotiate what could be an historic agreement with regard to the Korean Peninsula and the denuclearization that all of us hope for. I want to follow up on China just for a second, because you heard from Senator Shaheen that perhaps China has a little different view than we do about what the future ought to look like, particularly as I look at it, not just about our nuclear presence on the peninsula, because we do provide that nuclear umbrella, but also our troops and also exercises. Are you concerned that China will push for the North Koreans to demand the withdrawal, the total withdrawal of U.S. troops in Korea, or redeployment of the THAAD missile defense system as a condition that, in my view, would weaken America's military posture in the region? And if so, how would you deal with that?
Senator, I don't know how China will react with regard to pressuring North Korea as a negotiating partner of the United States. I do know, based on my previous job, that China is very unhappy with the placement of the THAAD missile system, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Missile System, in South Korea. But that was an alliance decision taken up by both the Republic of Korea and the United States together. And I think it's important, it's critical, that the decisions as we go forward here in this new place that we're in, that the decisions that we make with regard to troop levels, with regard to exercises, and with regard to everything else that affects the alliance, that those decisions be taken together with our South Korean ally. Now, these must be alliance decisions and not unilateral decisions. And so I think one of the jobs I'll have, if confirmed as the ambassador, is to implement policy that comes from Washington, that comes from the Secretary of State and the President, and also to stay synchronized with our South Korean ally. And that'll be the good work of diplomacy, I believe.
Speaking of that for a moment, the interoperability between the U.S. forces and the ROK forces is obviously a critical part of the security there, and my understanding is that President Moon has voiced support for an early transfer of wartime control of operational forces, the OPCOM forces, from the United States to South Korea. In other words, taking away operational control from the U.S. Is that a good idea? Are they ready?
At some point, they'll be ready. I mean, this is...
Are they ready now?
They're not ready today. The OPCON transfer, the transfer of operational control, OPCON transfer, we have agreed with South Korea that it must be conditions-based, and when those conditions are met rather than time-based, then they'll be ready to do that. That's hard work that's ongoing right now between U.S. Forces, Korea, Pacific Command, and DoD to work with their counterparts in Korea to determine those conditions and when those conditions will be met.
Putting on your new State Department hat, and I'm confident you'll be confirmed, and I'm pleased again you stepped up to do this. What do you think our posture ought to be with regard to human rights abuses in North Korea? As you and I have discussed, I come from Ohio, very involved in the release of Otto Warmbier, and the abhorrent behavior he received at the hands of the North Koreans is something we can never forget. But there are many North Koreans who've also been subject to human rights abuses, including war camps. Should that be part of any agreement with North Korea?
I think human rights should be a part of discussions. The President did raise them, and as a nation, and certainly as a department, we were very concerned with the gross human rights violations evidenced by the North Korean regime.
Thank you again, Admiral Harris, and we wish you the best of luck. You're going to be a critical part of these negotiations going forward. Mr. Schenkler, just briefly, and I've got to run, go vote. I'm probably holding things up over there. What do you think the prospects are for Iran and other parties to continue implementing the JCPOA? This is the Iran agreement that America has now withdrawn from. Would it be the administration's intent that we continue to work with our European allies to come up with a new agreement? And what would be your view on that?
Senator, thank you for the question. I don't know what where the administration is at on that exactly. It seems to me that the Europeans can make their own decisions on whether to pull out or not, but that the secondary sanctions that will be imposed on companies that are doing business may eventually make the Iranians leave. I don't know how this is going to play out. But it seems that the main priority of the administration, and if confirmed, one of my main priorities will be getting a new agreement that incorporates all the elements, whether it's Iranian nuclear, countering Iranian destabilizing regional behavior, and the missile proliferation.
Yeah, destabilizing behavior, I think, is the part that we missed, and look what's happened in the last several years with regard to Hezbollah and Syria in particular, but also as we see in Yemen and elsewhere. I need to go run vote, and my time has almost expired. Mr. Naj, lots of questions for you, but I want to follow, if I could, in writing on the Okavango Delta legislation that we're trying to work on here in the Senate and get your input on that.
Sure.
And I thank you all for your willingness to serve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.